All right, so all four of the divisional round matchups in the NFL playoffs concluded. All of them were crazy, very close matchups, and which is completely unheard of. All four games concluded in walk-off fashion, meaning that the team that won the game, had to score in the final moments, or as soon as they scored, they won the game. And, because of that, three of these four games ended in a game-winning field goal. The only game that didn't was the Chiefs-Bills game, which I'll talk about in more detail in a moment, which concluded in overtime. But yeah, three of these four games ended with a game-winning field goal. All were very close, and all, of course, ended within, 3 points to, in range from that 3 points to 6 points because of how close they were. So the first game, of course, was the Titans and the Bengals. The Titans were the 1 seed in the AFC, very much a favorite. I was personally rooting for the Titans just because the Bengals beat the Raiders, and, I'm still a little bit mad about that. So, yeah, the Titans had a chance to win this. They had Derrick Henry coming back after being out for a long time, but he really didn't make much of an impact, only averaged 3 yards a carry. Ryan Tannehill really didn't impress me too much. He had 3 interceptions in this game and a touchdown. Although Burrow didn't throw for a touchdown on the Cincinnati end, he did have 348 yards passing. He did have an interception, but it didn't really matter at the end. And Evan McPherson got the game-winning field goal. He was great in this game with a long of 54 yards and made 4 field goals. But yeah, in this game, though, they had a really, really good game from Jamar Chase, of course, who's been great all playoffs through these 2 weeks. He had 109 yards receiving, and T. Higgins had 96 yards receiving. So those were the highlights for them, the great players in this game. For the Titans, they had A.J. Brown, who did good. Julio Jones did pretty good as well. But A.J. Brown had 142 yards receiving. But yeah, Tannehill's interception at the end really sealed the game for the Bengals, as they were able to kick that game-winning field goal as time expired pretty much. So yeah, 19-16 was the final. Now we move on to another crazy game, and I was rooting for the Packers in this one. The Packers played the 49ers and lost, as even they were the 1 seed. So the 2 1 seeds in each respective conference lost. This game was in Green Bay, where it was practically 0 degrees. The Niners won it 13-10 with a game-winning field goal as time expired. And this game was pretty low scoring. Probably due to the weather. It was 7-0 at halftime in favor of the Packers, but the Niners, really swung the momentum. And the momentum was really swung when the Niners blocked a Packers punt late in the fourth quarter and took it back for a touchdown. That tied the game up. And they eventually, were able to get the ball back as Rodgers just couldn't find targets and kicked the game-winning field goal. I don't know how the Niners are doing it. Jimmy G, I don't think even has a playoff touchdown throw this year yet. He had no touchdown throws this game, at least. He threw an interception. It was 11 of 19 with 131 yards. And so the Niners kind of had to rely on the run game, which was okay. George Kittle was the leading receiver for them with 63 yards. But like I said, there was no receiving touchdowns for them, and they needed to really rely on their defense. That was, ended up being pretty strong in this game. And Robbie Gould, helped out with the special teams. For the Packers, Rodgers had a pretty good game, but also no touchdown throws for him. He was 225 yards. I feel bad for him, honestly, because, he loses in the playoffs a lot, and he's very respectable. Their run game was non-existent pretty much, and Aaron Jones was actually the leading receiver, even though he's a running back. So I guess, it kind of made up for it. He had 129 yards receiving. But yeah, besides that, I feel bad for the Packers. I think, they had a chance to win it. They didn't, and they needed to play better in the second half, and unfortunately they didn't, so they lost 13-10. Niners will move on and play the Rams, and I will, segue to now that game where the Rams had a crazy game against the Buccaneers. Final score was 30-27. Of course, a game-winning field goal was kicked in this game by Matt Gay. But this game was crazy because it reminded many people of Super Bowl LI 51, where, the Falcons were up 28-3 and blew the lead to Tom Brady. Now, this game, it was 27-3, and the Rams blew that lead to Brady. But the Rams were able to recoup, Cooper Cup, if you will, and win this game by a final score of 30-27. So yeah, like I said, the Rams really controlled the first half. Brady couldn't get anything to go. The only good player for the Bucs in the first half was Leonard Fournette, who was creating space, getting a lot of good runs, and the Rams were up 20-3 at half, and eventually, just took an even bigger lead. It was 27-3 at one point, but the Buccaneers in the third and fourth quarters came back, scored those 24 points to tie it up, led by Brady, of course. And but the Rams in their final drive were able to get 2 very clutch throws to Cooper Kupp, barely get him into field goal range with time, with adequate time. They had to spike the ball, and they won it as time expired. Matthew Stafford had a pretty good game, 28 of 38, 366 yards, 2 touchdowns. And the run game for the Rams was okay. The really big issue was they had 4 fumbles lost, and that really almost cost LA the game. The momentum was changing as the game went on. These fumbles, it almost seemed like LA was just handing the Buccaneers the game, of course. And so, yeah, I mean, that was a big problem for them. Otherwise, a good game overall. Tom Brady did pretty good as usual. I mean, you really can't count Brady out in the playoffs, but today he came out just short. Had a really good convincing comeback though. And I mean, of course, the Buccaneers, defending Super Bowl champions, they're a tough team to beat. But the Rams had a history of beating them earlier this year, so yeah. But anyways, Brady had 329 yards passing and a touchdown. Leonard Fournette was pretty good for the Buccaneers, and besides that though, just came up short of that comeback. It would have been very interesting. I was rooting for the Rams, but a comeback is always exciting. So yeah, that's that. Rams win 30-27, and of course we'll face the Niners next game. So then we move on to probably one of the craziest playoff games I've ever seen. This is the Kansas City Chiefs and the Bills, rematch of last year's AFC Championship game. And in overtime, the Chiefs won by a final score of 42-36. Another walk-off, of course. Let's skip to this ending, though. So the Chiefs are down, by a couple points. I believe it was, they were down by 3 points, so they needed to tie the game with a field goal. And there's 13 seconds left, and the Bills just absolutely choke on defense and allow the Chiefs to get, these easy yardage. They needed like close to 40 yards, and it's crazy how this ended. It was so many scores. And the Bills, I was just in awe of this guy, Gabriel Davis, who had 4 touchdowns, 201 yards receiving. He was crazy in this game. He was the reason the Bills were in it. And there was, scoring in every quarter for both teams, except for, of course, overtime for the Bills. They didn't score in overtime. They lost the coin toss, and I still don't like that rule. But yeah, anyways, the Bills had a chance to win this. They had coming back to do of their own. They were losing. They converted on 4th down. I mean, this game was crazy. This was a wild game. Kind of reminded me of that Chargers-Raiders, game from a couple weeks ago in Week 18. This game was absolutely incredible. I was rooting for the Bills, and I'm still sad for them. A lot of heartbreak in that fan base. Josh Allen was great, 329 yards, 4 touchdowns, and all of those touchdowns were to Gabriel Davis. And, yeah, I mean, they really choked on defense. It was their defense that really just sold the game. And it's weird because their defense this year has been pretty good. Patrick Mahomes had 3 touchdowns and 378 yards. And Tyreek Hill was his leading receiver. And Kelsey, of course, they were really impactful on that last drive. For the Bills, I feel bad for them. But now the Chiefs, we now know, will be going to their 4th straight AFC Championship game. And they will, of course, be hosting the Bengals. So, yeah, anyways, guys, that's some crazy games that we all saw there. And, yeah, so I'll see you guys in the championship round. Let me know your guys' thoughts. I'll see you guys later. And, yeah, peace out.